Hey, 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 welcome to Plus Size Curvy and Pregnant Ladies. Listen, tonight I am so excited to have Dr. Harris Jackson with us. She's going to introduce herself, but let me tell you, this is going to be a spicy conversation. I think every woman, every couple should be talking about it. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, I am talking about sex. Yes, we're talking about sex. We're talking about it. We can't be ashamed of it because in order to produce or conceive a baby, we have to do it. But on that journey, we can have some difficulties emotionally. So I felt like it was very important to invite her to come on and chat with us tonight. Welcome, Dr. Harris
Thank
Jackson.
you. Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Yay, how are you doing tonight?
I am well. I am doing well, and I'm just so excited to be able to be here and talk with you and just share information with everyone that I hope is going to be beneficial and helpful for everyone.
Yes, yes. So let's jump in. So I want you to introduce yourself. Give us history, education, how you come into your role in therapy, how you became a therapist. We all want to know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to give the condensed version because everyone always wants to know kind of like how did I end up in sex therapy world? Because it's not a lot of, especially it's not a lot of women of color who are doing it or who are in the sex therapy world. It's coming up more and more of us are starting to be in the field, but it's still not as prevalent as it used to be. And so I often get the question, and so the short version is, so I grew up in this really small town called Petersburg, Virginia. It was very small. It was my hometown, and I love it. And in my town, when I was coming up, it was just one of those towns that, we weren't really like big city life. You have a lot of exposure. It was about family. It was a little bit more conservative. So people had children, but you didn't really know how they had children. You know what I mean? Like,
Right,
so people were just like, were pregnant, babies came about, but no one talked about how that whole process happened. And
right.
so, and you knew not to ask questions. So I remember when I was little, and this was during, so I'm gonna date myself, but this was the time when those televisions were huge, like set on the ground. You had to walk up to it and turn a knob during
Yeah,
that time in the life. Yeah.
yes.
So during that time, there was this little old woman on a television show. Her name was Dr. Ruth Westheimer. And Dr. Ruth Westheimer she was this short little woman. I remember seeing her, and she had this little bitty voice that was so intriguing to me. And people were asking her questions about sex. And she was like on a daytime television show. And I just remember,
I feel like I thought, yeah, I have seen her. Yes, yes,
Dr.
yes,
Ruth.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. I'm like, what? She looks, a little bit more age, more mature, and she's talking about sex. And the parents be like, click, take
Yeah.
the channel.
Exactly. What was so amazing to me, one, of course, she's talking about sex and no one talks about sex, but she was using words that no one in my community used. And this is going to sound funny, but it's just the truth. So she was saying things like penis and vagina on TV. Like,
Right.
she wasn't saying like woohoo and she was using the actual terminology, and I'm like, oh my goodness. But so I was enamored by this, but I was also fascinated because people really were paying attention and they were really curious, and so was I. And so at that young age, and I'm telling you, like, I'm in elementary school and seeing this woman on TV, and I shouldn't have been watching it, but watching it, um, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And
Yeah.
so that was my journey. I and it wasn't an easy one. I'll be honest. I had to ask people, how do I become a sex therapist? And the looks that I would receive, the things that people would say about me, it was just so much. But I was determined. So I stayed the course and ended up getting my bachelor's degree in counseling. I went to Old Dominion University and received my bachelor's degree in counseling. in women's studies. And then I went on to get my master's in social work, because I was advised at the time, like, oh, become a social worker. Social workers do everything. And you can be a sex therapist as a social worker. So I was like, okay. So I did that. So glad I did, because I love being a social worker, but I actually needed a little bit more education.
Yeah.
And so then I went on and I received my PhD in human sexuality. And so I have the clinical background that grew me with women's studies, with counseling, through social work, the clinical work, and the added knowledge and skill around sex and sexuality. And I bring that together in my teaching, in my research, and in my clinical practice.
Yes, yes. And Dr. Harris Jackson actually has a private practice in here in Central Florida, and you'll find her information that will be actually hyperlinked into our broadcast tonight. And you can follow her on social media as well. I'm telling you, you guys are in for a treat, guys. I don't want to spoil it. So let's just jump in. So your interest in sexual health and the lack of the knowledge in the general community. Tell me how that all just sprung up. You gave me the history, but the interest in sexual health.
Yeah. So the interest really came from, so again, when I learned about kind of that there was terminology that went with the biology of it, and that there was just more, I became curious on my own. So I used to go to the library and read books. And I was just a nerdy kid, so I would read books about all the things that they say you shouldn't be, but I was in the anatomy and physiology books. I was reading about menstruation. I was just so curious. But what happened with that curiosity is I would have friends, my good girlfriends, and this is in high school, this is in middle school, this was definitely in college, who would talk about sex or talk about things in sexuality. And I realized that what I understood through my reading and what they were saying were completely different things. So they would say things like they were concerned about being pregnant because of how they had sex. But I knew that what I read said that you couldn't get pregnant that way. Like,
Right.
it's impossible. But so I would ask questions like, well, wait, what did you do? And how did you do it? And so I found myself talking to a lot of my friends about, oh, okay, no, here are the mechanics of it. And oh, you woke up and you're bleeding. Tell me more about that. What happened? Oh, okay, here's what's going on. So I was fascinated with the fact that one, people didn't know, but then two, I was annoyed that people didn't know, that my friends didn't know. I felt like it was a disservice to all of us, especially us young women, because this became around the time that, puberty, people are having sex, but no one knows what they're doing. No one knows how to be safe. There is emotional labor that goes into that, in addition to the physical, in addition to the psychological, and everyone's trying to figure it out when they get into the bed. And they were trying to figure it out based on what they saw in the soap operas or what they saw in the movies. And so then they're upset because, well, he didn't like kiss me or hold me tight at the end because you saw that at a movie. I'm like, but it doesn't work only. So for me, that's really where the passion came from. And once people started to see that I was just open, I would just talk about it, or I would research about it and find the answer. Then they started to ask me questions that were more personal and that they felt a lot of shame and guilt around. And that was it could have been for something more mundane, from guys asking me about, having an erection and ejaculating in the morning without stimulation, to having experiences of people having erotic ideas and thoughts and feelings and feeling a lot of shame around that. And I was always someone who would say, let's just talk about it. And that to me felt good, that I could be a safe space and a safe place for people to share. And from then it became my full on passion to really be that safe place, that resource where people can come and get accurate information and be supported in a way that they aren't judged, but they're really heard for who they are and how they desire and what they desire in their lives.
I love that explanation. I love it. I love everything. And you're so peaceful. I can't imagine being in therapy with you because I'd be like, oh, whatever she says. Oh, it's so peaceful, so calming demeanor. But I know that it gets interesting in your office sessions with your patients and the couples that may come in to see you. So, what is the most common question you're asked as a sex therapist? It could be crazy, it could be normal, but I want to know. I'm that curious.
Yeah. So, you know, and I just ponder on this because I am also asked that a lot. And as far as a common question, there isn't a lot of commonality to it, except the common experience is this experience of not feeling normal is a common experience. Like there's something wrong with the individual. So, for instance, what is very common for me to get a phone call or an email from someone in a couple or in a relationship dynamic reaching out and saying, I need to fix myself because there's something happening in my relationship where it's just not working. Like the mechanics aren't working, my desire's not there. I need to fix myself. And oftentimes, what people don't realize is when they're coming to me for that, 8 times out of 10, it's usually something that's happening within the context of the relationship dynamic or the partnership dynamic that has brought to surface maybe something that they have gone through, or it is bringing to surface feelings and emotions that they're having that are actually getting in the way of them feeling erotic, getting in the way of them feeling sexual. But they feel like it's them, so they want to fix them. And my response always is, if this is in the context of a relationship, it is very difficult to fix the individual in a relationship because it is a relationship experience. It's different if someone is coming to me as an individual and saying, which I have people coming to me and a common experience is, I've been in relationship and relationship and relationship, and I feel like it's just not working. There's something that I'm not doing right. And I want to get it right before I get into my next relationship. And so that on the individual level, and I'm always applauding them when they do that. I'm like, yes. So we sit down and we do the heavy unpacking to do that work. But as far as just like, so a lot of it is relationship based, whether it's non-monogamy, polyamory, whether it is consensual non-monogamy, whether it is sexual orientation. Like there are a variety of questions that come, but a lot of it is the individual base and in relationships. From a sexual mechanic experience, a common occurrence that comes is having erectile dysfunction. So having difficulty having or maintaining an erection or ejaculation. For the woman, sometimes it's very difficult to experience penetration or experience orgasm. And so a lot of my work is generally around that. And I find that when I'm working with women, oftentimes, one of the reasons that they have difficulty experiencing orgasm is because a lot of women don't even understand their own body. They haven't even explored their own body. So they're not even really sure what turns them on, what eroticizes them. They're used to their bodies being tools or objects of desire and pleasure for the partner, but not knowing how to experience their own pleasure. So I do a lot of work around that.
Wow, and I can't even talk. Conversations in there that'll go on for 2-3 sessions. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, y'all. She does a lot of work, a lot of heavy lifting. We start talking about anything that's happening in the bedroom, it's heavy. It's heavy in my the way I process it, my thoughts, because it can make or break you. you know, especially in the relationship department. And I want to ask this question. Has nothing to do with fertility, but what is sexual confidence? Well, I guess it does have to do with fertility. What is sexual confidence, and how does it impact infertility?
So sexual confidence is huge. Here's what everybody needs to know. And it is just that it's that sexiness 101. Like, get out the pen, get out the paper, take note, because this is the most important thing to know when it comes to just sex, sexiness, getting it on, and having the best experience possible. And that is the most important organ to get involved in the sexual experience, to turn on, is the mind. It is the most important. Without that, we're just bodies just kind of robotically making things happen. But it's when we engage the mind that everything shifts. So sexual confidence is a knowing. It is a knowing of yourself, of your sexual self, that when you enter the sexual space, that sexual sphere, I don't care if it's a bedroom, I don't care if it's the car, I don't care if it's the backyard. When you enter that space, you know what you know that you know. Like, you are here for it. You are ready for it. You know how to ask for what you want. You know how to position things where you need them. You know how to direct people where to go. You know the map and the layout of your body, and you know how to work it. You know how to travel it, and you know how to guide others to travel it. You understand how to be a passenger in someone else's sexual journey and experience. So you're okay, you're confident enough to sit beside your partner or partners and have them guide you on the journey of their body. You're not so insecure that it's important to you to bang it out and knock it out versus being present with them and experiencing their pleasure. That's a very different experience. What we've been groomed and taught and socialized to believe in the media is that sex happens a specific way. Guy walks into the room, he walks into the place, he has command, he takes charge. Woman is submissive, she lays, she takes it. He's supposed to know what he's doing. He has this sexual proudness, and he's supposed to come in and command. And then she's supposed to just lay and kind of take it. That's been our socialized idea about sex. But what has happened is it has taken out the ability for people of all genders to have their own way to understand their sexuality. So sexual confidence is, screw what the media says, screw what we've been taught, which is tough. But getting rid of those messages, those predetermined messages, and saying, in my own right, in my own body, in my own mind, I know what I want. I know who I am as a sexual being, and I'm here for it. I'm here for all of it, and I'm ready to explore all of that. And what can happen is when we're lacking that confidence, we have more trepidation when it comes to intimacy. And when we have more trepidation when it comes to intimacy, then we start having difficulty with when it comes from communication to fertility, because we're not able to express what we need and how we need it. And that impacts the sexual and the intimate experience.
I mean, I just need a notebook. Well, just say this. Y'all take notes for me and send them to me. Okay? Because I'm all in the moment right now, and I'm like, wow. And I'm sure my husband's right outside this door, speaking and listening. Right, babe? Right outside. I'm telling you. Listen, the type, he gonna knock on the door, y'all. Sorry. You can't come into this room right now. So let's just say, the sexual confidence, ladies, like, we can't move forward in talking about fertility if we don't talk about this. And this is why I was like, this is such an important episode. I love every episode, and y'all know I get excited about every single one. But this one, I felt like I had to talk about it. Now, as a church girl, I'm like, wait, mom, don't, don't watch this, daddy. Please, pastors and bishops, don't judge a sister. But it's so much that we are sheltered from, that we don't understand. And as you go through certain times in your life, certain seasons in your life, difficulties, you start realizing how this stuff impacts everything. And I can personally say, and my husband and I have shared how infertility and our journey to conceiving became a mechanical process. So I wanted to make sure that I created a space and allowed for this type of education to happen in this platform. It's important to me. And that you guys know that the resources are out there, like Dr. Harris Jackson, to teach us. And so you all can reach out to her too. So let's talk about infertility. How does infertility impact intimacy? We kind of touched on it, but I want you to go into deep with that one. How does it impact intimacy? How does sexual satisfaction and how it causes like a long lasting distress in relationships?
Yeah.
Just going at, because I feel like it caused distress in my marriage because I was just like, your hand will do a job. We have an end goal. And if you're not meeting the end goal on time, mama's gonna be angry.
Mm-hmm.
And so we found ourselves, in the mechanical process, and we found ourselves arguing even in our intimate space. So go ahead and take that one. I'm thinking back.
Yeah. So this one is so complex, and I am just so thankful that you are creating this space to have this conversation, because it's a conversation that people they just don't have. They don't talk about. When there are issues with infertility, it becomes all about the medical component. So you're going to doctor's appointments, you're tracking, you're doing all these things, and it becomes a disconnection from body and also from partner, because everything becomes about charting and test results and shots and pill. Everything becomes about everything other than intimacy. And so it can have a significant impact on relationship, on psychology. There's so many levels to that. So taking it back a little bit to the sexual confidence, for instance. So let's say you're the type of person, let's say that I'm going to use I statements. Okay. So let's say that I know that in my sexual confidence and knowing myself, that I'm my best sexual self after I have had a nice, relaxing day. It's been no stress. I'm able to be at home, have a good meal, take a nice shower, get some music going, light a few candles, put on something nice. And then after I do all of that, then there may be like more of a process for me where I may want a little bit of light, sweet talk and some rubbing on my shoulders. And I just want a lot of foreplay, for instance. So let's say I just know that about myself and my sexual map, right? That's my confidence level. I might want and enjoy tons and tons of oral sex. And my partner might as well. So this might be how we intimately connect and have a wonderful time with it. Well, if we are planning to have a child and we feel like it's going to be this natural progression, we might continue our journey and our map the way we typically do. But then when we find out that that's not working, and now we have to go to things like going to doctor's appointments, checking out my body, checking out my partner's body, my partner having to do things, manually take care of himself and ejaculate into a cup and have the sperm counts counted. And I have to have constant tests and my blood tests and so forth. Now my body is being poked and prodded, and I'm feeling tense, and I'm not as relaxed as I used to feel. And now I'm tired and I'm frustrated because my mind is now going from, it was supposed to be just this gradual thing that we were supposed to just be able to have sex and we have a child, to now I'm thinking, why isn't this working? What's wrong? So I'm not as relaxed as I typically am, and I'm more stressed. And then I find out, well, let's count. Let's count the days. Let's count the times. And so instead of having my whole process, it's like, now it's time. Get my partner. Let's go. We got lunch break. Gotta go. Get it up now. Make it like everything that made me my sexually confident self is out the window.
Oh, you tell the truth.
And one of the most impactful processes for erectile dysfunction, having difficulty for ejaculation with men, is having performative based sex. Because when it's performative based, then that means you are required to perform. Now my anxiety is peaked as a guy because I've got to make something happen. I've got to do it. Remember, the mind is the most important organ. So even in his sexual self-confidence, it's like, well, the confidence is waning because I can't get my partner pregnant. We're having difficulty. There's this rounds and around, and it just is impacting everything. And what we know is that when stress is high, is peaked, there's a strong correlation to our physical health, our body. So now there's a cycle going on where fertility wise, I'm also being impacted because of the high levels of stress that's happening in my body. It is this ongoing cycle, and it has significant impact that no one ever talks about. When they go to the doctor's they're just talking about the mechanics, but they don't ask, how are you two doing? How are you trying to keep the romance alive? Don't try to have sex this week. I know you've been on a clock. I know you feel like that, but give yourselves the week off and have some time just together to just be romantic and rekindle the love. That doesn't happen because the doctors find that it's their job to get you pregnant, and everything becomes mechanical. So that's the type of impact that it can have, and it can have a long-term impact on the relationship to the point that some relationships don't last, unfortunately.
Right, and that is so sad. I mean, we've been there. My husband and I, we've shared, and we tell you guys, we've been there because it was to a point where we were stressed out. We were stressing each other out. There was like barely. We both wanted the same end result. We both wanted to conceive. We wanted a healthy pregnancy, and we knew what we had to do to get there. But I made this statement before where I said that we stopped loving each other in the process. And it was like, what? People were like, what? You stopped loving each other? Like you guys were on the verge of separating? I'm like, no, we stopped loving each other. Having that sexual confidence time, having that prep time, having that fun that, that we love to have, like we always say. We both were like, listen, this is what we're doing, especially me. I have to confess to it. Hey, I'm gonna tell you, I'm one of those people, my planner's out and I'm writing. I'm the one with the chart, I'm sit in the text. I'm going like, you gotta do it right now. And my husband's like, all right. And you can see the joy and the spark that used to be in his eyes diminish quickly. And so it wasn't that I wasn't attracted to my husband, but I was like, if I'm gonna get all, dolled up and put on the little pieces that you like and do all this extra stuff, buddy, you gotta put it down and do it right. So it was just all this stuff. It was so much emotional baggage. And like you were talking about our minds being the strongest part, I'm like, yeah, sometimes we're in the midst of it and I was thinking like, is this the one? Is this the day? Is this the time? Is it gonna happen right now? I couldn't get out of my own head. I couldn't.
Yeah.
Because I had an end goal in mind. And
Yeah.
so there goes the intimacy and there goes sexual frustration.
Absolutely. And a lot of times also with every perceived failure, it's internalized as well. And so oftentimes women will say they feel like their bodies are failing them. They don't feel sexy. They don't feel like a woman because what's wrong with me? My body is failing me. That doesn't feel sexy. And there's just so much that's going on, especially if you're also taking treatments. The hormonal treatments are having an impact on the body, on feeling sexy, again, in the mind, so that they don't even, oftentimes it's like, I only want to do it when we have to do it. And when we have to do it, I'm not even there. It literally is mechanical. I just deposit and move forward. It's kind of what happens. Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head. And I know a lot of us women out here who've been on this journey, we've been there in our minds, we've been there in our bedrooms, and we've had that frustration and that lack of confidence. Wow, wow, wow. I'm loving this session. I am loving it. Now, the question I'm going to ask next, you kind of touched on it a little bit. And she's just flowing, y'all. She is just flowing, and I'm loving it. So I'm like, all I have to do is push a little bit further to get more information for us. But what, sorry, not what, how does infertility affect the man emotionally? You touched on that. And how can they be supported? Because I feel like a lot of attention is on the woman, on the one conceiving. We get a lot of the attention. We get the injections. We get the support from our OBGYNs and specialists, and then he, like you said, all he has to do is deposit in the cup or deposit when we're actually having intercourse. So how can we support them, and how does this entire journey affect them emotionally?
Yeah. The toll that it takes, I don't, and again, thank you for having this just platform, because men are often left out of the conversation, and they're often left out of the process. They are literally seen sometimes, just seen as someone to make the outcome happen. And that's it. So show up when you need to show up and go away in other times because I don't need you. So for socially, women are conditioned that we can have permissively emotion. For women of color, that's a little bit different. That looks a little bit different. But in general, socially, we can have emotion. So we can pick up the phone and cry to a friend. We can pick up the phone and cry to a family member and talk about how distressed we are and how difficult that it is. But where can men do that? How can men do that safely? Where can they safely go to share that information? Oftentimes, if they feel like they want to go to their partner and talk about it, sometimes the partner, this female partner, the partner is feeling like how dare you have a moment right now, because I need you. I need you to be strong so I can fall on you, because men are conditioned and seen as they're supposed to be the strong ones. So they need to provide. They're seen as financially, they're supposed to be able to provide. So if something's going on physically with the woman, and for instance, she's high risk and she needs to be on bed rest while they're trying, financially, he has to figure out a way to take care of that. A lot of times that is put on the man, even if that's not in actuality, subconsciously, that's the conditioning that's there. It's also, if the woman is not getting pregnant, and it's found out that there may be something going on with him and with sperm count, then that is a whole nother aspect of it, of not feeling like a man. Because sometimes people say things like, you only had one job and you can't even do that one job. And that is so demoralizing and so demeaning and so unaffirming. It cuts in so many ways. And they're expected to just kind of laugh it off, buck up, and move forward with it. It's completely difficult, especially for guys who find out that they are having difficulty, and then they start to look at maybe other fertility routes where the woman is looking at, or the couple is looking at getting other sperm. That is even more difficult, and people don't often talk about that. Mm-hmm. So there's so many layers to that. Also, again, with that fact that he's seen as just show up and do the job, and then go away after that. Don't ask me for anything else. You know I'm going through a tough time. I shouldn't have to worry about cooking. I shouldn't have to worry about this, about that. You should just take care of everything because I'm going through a difficult time, is oftentimes how the women feel. And so guys are often left with no outlet for support. The only support that they have is their partner, but that's a difficult place because they feel like they can't safely share without also being attacked many times. So many times, this is one of those times. It's not where guys go off and cheat, because a lot of times women think, well, he's just going to go off and cheat. And so it's not that, but oftentimes guys are looking for a place where they can just kind of, one, feel like they have a purpose, like feel like they have something else to contribute and offer. Because even when they're going through that, when they get pregnant, which is exciting, which is a wonderful and joyous time, attention is still on the woman when they get pregnant. And then after they have the baby, the attention is still on the woman. So he's gone through an extended period of time where all the attention, all the support is on the woman, and he's left to the side. And then woman is usually with the baby, after the baby, giving all the attention to the baby. He's still left on the side. So it's so...
I never thought about it that way. I literally never thought about it that way. I mean, have any of you ladies thought about it that way? That we just pretty much, they've been abandoned from the beginning.
And we're conditioned that that's the way it's supposed to be. And they are supposed to be okay with that. So they're just supposed to go to work, come home, and, just deal with it. That's the way it's supposed to be. And it's so tough. So one of the ways that guys can be supported during this, and I'm glad you asked that question, is for the partner to be aware and to allow themselves to be a safe space for their husband, for their boyfriend, for their fiance, to talk to them and understand that just as difficult as it is for her, it's difficult for him too. And allow him to express that difficulty. And there's no tit for tat. There's no comparison. Well, you don't understand what I'm going. No one understands what anyone's going through, but you all are going through it together. And that's the most precious and supportive experience you can have together, because no one can tell your story or walk your journey except the two of you. So being on the journey together is the most important thing. Helping him to feel like he is a part of the process. Making sure he's included in the room. When the doctor's talking to her, talk to him too. Check in with him too. Ask him questions. When family and friends are calling and checking on her, ask them to check in on him too. Be intentionally inclusive of him in the process as well. Let him know that he's valued for more than just what he can deposit.
Girl, you are talking into so many lives right now. I know you're talking into my life, and the reason why I say that is because, like I said before, you you said it becomes a mechanical thing. It's a process. And then, like, once this job is done, you're like, yeah, babe, we won. We have a baby on the board, and you don't realize that everybody is checking on you. How are you doing? Are you still having morning sickness? Are you still doing this? How's the doctor's appointment? And I don't think, maybe one of my husband's friends and one of our, who probably said, hey, how are you doing? How is she treating you? Matter of fact, I gotta give a shout out to my pastor. He sure enough did. He called my husband and was like, how is she treating you? Because, we women, we got all these hormones going on. I may not have been too nice sometimes. I gotta ask for apology, to be forgiven a couple of times. And I might have slipped up and said, something that was not very loving. And again, y'all, I like to be transparent and real with you. I'm not sugarcoating. I'm not Instagram anything. I like to be as transparent as possible in the sacred and safe space of my marriage. So I like to tell y'all, this is what it is, and that's why we bring professionals on here to tell us these things, and maybe a light bulb will go off in your mind, just like it is in mine right now, about places where I need to be, improving. And one thing you said is just even us as women checking on them. I mean, besides saying, babe, how you doing today? How was the day at work? I don't think I've asked him, like, emotionally, especially in the process of us trying to get pregnant, how he was doing until, this whole journey. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And I feel like we all need to probably step back and ask our wives or our husbands or partners, like, hey, how are you in this process? You can share with me. This is space. This is a safe space. And I don't feel that we do that on purpose. Am I right?
Right, right. It's definitely not on purpose. Not at all. It's just everything is happening to each individual, and it feels like it's happening to you. And so you're in your mind, there's so many things, thoughts, like women, you're waking up thinking about it. You're thinking about it throughout the day, going to bed thinking about it. There's so many thoughts. So it's not intentional at all. And oftentimes you might find that if you ask your male partner, he might, oh, am I? It's cool. I just want to, whatever you need, however I can support you. Because that's the conditioning and that's the expectation. So I'm going to tell you, they're likely going to say that. And it's okay to keep checking in and letting them know that authentically you mean it. And it's not just like how we see people at the grocery store. You're like, hey, how you doing? And you expecting them to say, oh, I'm okay. Because if they say more, you're like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting to stay here and listen to that.
Your real superficial question.
Right. 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 So you want to let them know authentically. This is where we use the love languages. That's where that becomes important. So if you haven't done the love language test, and I always, when I'm working with couples, I always say, even if you've done it, do it again and do it with a therapist and allow them to interpret it at a deeper level for you. So this is where we use the love languages to kind of get through that barrier of the socialized ideas, the how we were brought up, how we were raised, and the expectations, and really creating a safe space that says, no, I really, really mean it. In this love language that you receive, this gift that I'm giving you, this time that I'm giving you in this space, I want to know how you are. And I really want to sit and receive that right now. That makes all the difference.
Yes, it does. And you actually brought back to my memory my husband and I actually doing the love languages, the love language test in the series and a study on it. And I never realized before that what my real love language was. Okay.
Mm,
And so I discovered that during that doing that test with him. And I realized that I was loving him the way I wanted to be loved,
yeah.
and it was vice versa. And once I knew how he wanted to be loved, and once I knew how he accepted love and saw love, it was like, oh, so I was cooking and I was cleaning and I was doing all, and all you wanted me to do was affirm you, you know? I mean, it kind of was just like, geez, oh, I'll buy him a gift or whatever. And he's like, that's great, man, that's nice. And I'm like, I need more excitement. I mean, I thought I was winning here. And he's like, I love it. But it wasn't the reaction that I wanted. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm trying to love him after doing this test in the series. I'm trying to love him the way I want to be loved.
Yeah. And
So
that's a
that changed,
common occurrence. Mm-hmm.
that changes a lot. And that we both have realized, even like, he's like, oh, about to get fun tonight. Like, I know how to get there. I'm like, well, the dish is done, the baby's back. Oh, okay. I see you. Brownie, those kind of things. And now we both understand that. And it makes that intimate space start before the bedroom.
Mm-hmm. That's the key. There you go. That's exactly how you use it. And I always tell people, and I'm going to give this to you too if you all haven't done it, that next layer is the apology language. Oh, that is powerful. So if you've done the five love languages,
Tell us.
yes, if you've done the five love languages, and for your viewers, you can go online, look up five love languages, go onto the website. You can send me a note. I'm happy to send you the information, or I'll put it on my my Facebook page. But you go onto the website, you take the test for free. You don't have to pay anything, and it'll give you your all of your languages and the percentage of your language for the love languages, and that's important. So it's not just the first one; it's how they interact with each other. But then after that, on that same website, you can go up and click quizzes, I think it is, and then take the apology language. Again, that's free. But what the apology language does, and I love that, and it's so powerful, is how when we get into arguments or disagreements, or especially for infertility around this time when tensions are high and things are happening and something is done wrong or amiss, how we apologize to each other is powerful. So some people, when they apologize, they want to hear, I'm sorry for. So they need to hear that not only that you're sorry, but that you understand what you're apologizing for. So that's some people's apology style. Some other people's apology style is they want to hear, I'm sorry, I was wrong. So they want to hear you say, you know, you are wrong, and that you're going to make amends. And this is how you're going to make amends. All of that is important. And so sometimes if you get into an argument and you might notice with your partner, you may say, I'm sorry, dang, what else can I say? Because for someone's apology language, it's like, you don't get it. They literally shut down and say, you don't get it. You can't be sorry. No, because you didn't use it in their apology language. So that's another level. And so I would encourage anyone, all couples, all partners, all people in relationships, love languages, apology language, take it to the next level, get it interpreted with a therapist, which is really powerful. But even if you don't, just use those, and that can really make a difference in communication, especially if you're going through a really tense, life-turning time, such as infertility.
I need to do the apology one. I need to do that. Because I mean, sometimes I do feel like, I'm sorry. And it's like, okay, let's just move right along because this is going to blow up in the wrong direction. And I'm like, well, I don't know what else to say. So I will definitely be on that resource. Okay.
Yeah.
Ladies, take notes. Like I said, this conversation, it's about infertility, but it's about sexual health. And I feel like it all plays a part. So here we go. Now, I've always heard the term infertility trauma. And I just want you to really just dig into that for me. How is it identified, treated, and managed? Because I feel like I, for one, understand it. And we have all of us actually just get a better and a professional explanation of that infertility trauma.
Yeah, this is so good that you're doing this. I'm just so good. So trauma, most people know, they know the term, they know it. But to really understand trauma, you want to think about it as an event, an action, or an experience that has taken place that is significant and significant enough that the emotional connection to it was a painful one, a difficult one. That emotional connection piece is important because that's what makes it traumatic. Like something can be bad, right? Like, so I can stub my toe and that can hurt, but it wasn't traumatic because emotionally, it wasn't something that I became distraught about. It wasn't something that really pulled me in a really negative way. However, if goodness forbid, something were to happen to my dog, we were out walking and a car hit my dog, for instance, then that could be a very traumatic event. And because when that event happened, the emotional connection was so negative and powerful, anytime I get close to that intersection, I might just have a reaction to that. I might break down in tears. My body might tense up. I might not be able to go by that intersection because of the emotion that happened to this very significant negative event. So this is what we're talking about with trauma. Now, infertility trauma, if you put that in context, most people know this. They've heard the term PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. You can correlate the two. So infertility trauma, when you're going through the process, we've talked about this, all the things that you're going through, that you've gone through, that people never even imagined that they had to go through. Some people financially, the financial toll that it takes, they never expected, like in debt, how it has just pulled on the family in that way, how it impacts maybe other children that may have already been present, people don't talk about. Like there's so much that happens around the experience of infertility. And as this is happening, and when this is happening, there are moments that sometimes I call anchoring moments. Those anchoring moments are when a situation happened and you remember. You remember like it was yesterday. You remember where you were sitting. You remember what was said. You remember how the wind felt. You remember. You remember when you were trying to have sex with your partner for the fourth time to try to make this happen. And he just said, I can't do this anymore. You remember that. And you remember the experience of, I felt like he gave up. Oh my God. And this feeling of like, what am I doing here? My relationship, like all of that is a buildup in this chronic experience of trauma over and over again, depending on how long you try. Some people try for years. Over and over again, that's built up in the psyche. And trauma, we know, is also held in the body. So it's not just in the mind, trauma is also held in the body. So we now have our mind and our bodies that's holding memories of significant negative events. And each time it happens, it's just building and building. And so with infertility trauma, there's a spectrum of experiences we can have, from when we think about children, even if we have our own out of that experience, the process to have the child was so difficult that it can impact the connectivity that we're even having with our child. That's a level of infertility trauma that people don't even talk about.
Wow. Yeah.
They don't even talk about that. They don't understand sometimes why maybe, again, people don't talk about the financial toll that it takes. And sometimes a partner has a difficult time just connecting with the kid because they're like, we're broke. Yeah, right. It's like, we're broke. We're going to be broke for the next 15 years and we're going to have to build back up all over again. But the baby's here. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay. And there was an expectation of trying to get around that. Infertility trauma also plays a factor in, again, remember I talked about just remembering being in places and times and experiences. You could be driving down the road and remember when you pulled up that report that said that this wasn't the one. Or going to that doctor's office and you remember the way that you used to turn. And all of that can take a toll psychologically and again physically, where again, when it comes to intimacy and in relationships, people might find that they tense up now. When it comes to having sex, there's a tense up that happens because having sex is now a connotation with all that we had to go through and the mechanics of it and how we fought and how I learned a different part of you as my partner. I thought you were this way, but when we were trying to have a baby, you showed me a completely different thing. And I don't know now. I don't know. So I don't know if I can connect with you that way. I don't know if I can be in this space with you that way. All of that is a connection to the experience of the traumatic events that we've gone through. And it is a form of PTSD that we can have. And it's something that actually what is most helpful, not only talking about it, because oftentimes with infertility, we don't talk about it. We feel like we're a failure. We feel like we're supposed to get pregnant. It's just supposed to happen. So we hold all of that in. So one of the most powerful things we can do is start to talk about it, because when we talk about it, we normalize things and we realize we're not in this alone. And that can be really helpful. And the other thing is to get really some professional support around that, because trauma is a form of anxiety. Having PTSD is a form of anxiety. So when you're having these reactions and you don't know why, when you're having these outbursts or shaking uncontrollably or not able to eat or just a variety of things are happening, that's a form of anxiety that you're experiencing. And oftentimes people feel like, oh, they just need medication, but it's deeper than that. What medicine does, it doesn't change what you've experienced. It just alters slightly our ability to manage what we've experienced, but the experience is still there. So we've got to process through that experience in order to begin to heal.
That is so deep. I mean, I'm sitting here like I'm recalling these things you were saying, and I work in psychiatry, and that's why it's so good to step outside of what you do and be evaluated by someone and sit and talk with someone and share. Because I can literally, you were giving those examples of the doctor's offices, driving down the road. I was seeing myself in different places when certain news came my way, or certain arguments that I had with my husband, and certain places where I even lost faith that we would never, and hope that we would not have a baby with my, before getting pregnant with my son. And I shared this with you, Dr. Harris Jackson, where even in my birthing process, there was some trauma that happened there, and I had a complete, never had before, panic attack because of the way the news was delivered to me about how my son would have to be birthed. And in my mind at that time, like, can something finally go smoothly? Like, that's so much trauma that I had absorbed at that time, and just really, and like I've said to you ladies before, never talked about it. It just built up. And even birthing my miracle, I had a complete utter panic attack. Didn't know where it came from, and I was just like, I blew up. So talking about these things ahead of time and processing those things are so important, because you said something that really, really touched me, like how it looks like after you've had the child. And the type of anxiety, you can be that helicopter mom that has to hover, has to be there. You're so anxious that you start making your kid anxious.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And that's even deeper. Talk about that real quick. Like, what you can actually, your anxiety can actually do to that baby that you've been waiting on.
Yes.
That type, that you're traumatizing and making trauma normal.
Yes. Oh, this is so good. So, because these are things that people just don't talk about. And so, yes. So, and you have, again, a spectrum of experiences. And I'm sure that the individuals who are watching this, they will find themselves maybe on the spectrum or even beyond the spectrum. But part of that, yes, if you have tried so hard to have your baby, and your baby, your miracle finally comes, some people literally experience this, where it's you, from my cold, dead hands, is the only way this child is coming out of my life ever. And so what happens is, other people can't get in. There's no bonding, no additional bonding that's happening with that child. That's so important, because children have to be able to begin to bond with different people. That's healthy, learning different environments, learning different ways to interact with different people. But what you've gone through has been so much. It's like, I can't. So this energy is actually connected to this child, and they feel this tension. They feel this energy. Oftentimes it experiences to the point where the moms, they're sleeping with the baby. The baby is right in the bed, right on the boob, right there. Like, doesn't matter if there are other people in this relationship. Boop, boop. Baby is right here, and baby is gonna stay right here. Maybe until they graduate high school. Maybe. Without any shame whatsoever. And that experience, literally over that child's lifetime, is one that is very anxious, very high anxiety. I work with young adults and children who are the product of that. And they're able to literally tell me, when I do the psychological history, well, my mom had a difficult time having children. I was considered the miracle baby. And so they're in this space where they're always saying, I know, that she loved me. I know that she wanted the best for me. But a lot of times that experience that the kids have is like, they feel like they have to be perfect. They feel like they can't ever disappoint mom. They feel like it's just this, and it's a lot. It's a lot. And it's coming out of this great and loving space, but it's also coming out of a space of fear, an understandable space of fear that the parent had, but it's a place of fear nonetheless, and anxiety. And so getting support for that, normalizing that. One, I'm normalizing that. So parents, you're not crazy. Moms, you're not crazy. Dads, you're not crazy if you feel this way, but it's actually not healthy for the child that you're so happy to have. So finding ways to make it a healthier environment for the child is ideal. The other end of the spectrum of that, though, becomes the parent that tried so hard to have the child, and what the toll that it took on them physically and psychologically, that the bond is actually impacted. And
Mm.
so they actually have a difficult time bonding because of trauma that happened out of that situation, whether the relationship ended, whether, again, there was financial demise. Some people had experiences where having the child did something for them where they couldn't have further children. It shifted dynamics of their body physically. And so their bodies don't operate the same, their health isn't the same. And so now there's some kind of animosity that they have towards the child, and sometimes that results in a separation emotionally with the child, or feeling like the child owes them something. And so it becomes, I did all of this to bring you into the world, the least you can do, you better do. All of these are experiences out of that trauma place. It's not uncommon, but it's important to get support so that the parent and the child can have the life that they deserve.
Oh my goodness. Girl, I mean, I wish I had like the whole day. We talk about this the whole day because we don't really actually talk about what happens post conceiving.
Yeah.
So that even goes for those of us who adopt, you know.
Yeah.
To me, if it can happen to those who conceive and those who haven't conceived and have adopted, it's the same thing.
Mhm.
And the same way we can do the same thing with our husbands and our partners, right?
Right. Exactly.
You carry
Exactly.
they can't
Exactly.
leave the house, they can't go to the grocery store, they can't go to work. And I, for one, well, my son was born early, so I stayed home with him for a year.
Mm.
So staying home with him for a year, I thought, okay, like I get to bond with him. I didn't let other people help because like I get him rest. I was one of those. But one thing I remember is when we finally decided it was time for us to even like take him to daycare, right? For it was brief, it's like 6 or 7 months, but because COVID hit and we were like, we're done. But but anyway, I realized and which is normal for a toddler not to want to go into a new environment. But it came to a place where he'd been there for 5 months and it was still a complete breakdown.
Mm.
And I started wondering, I'm like, well, what is it? Is it the classroom environment? I mean, I kind of felt a little bit of everything. But what I did realize is like, he wants to see me right here with
Mm.
him because he was always right here. I was one of those moms, and I never thought I would be one of those moms who would have the co-sleeping device in the bed with us because I wanted to see him. I mean, hello, like you said, with infertility is a struggle. I need to make sure he's good throughout the night. He needs to be within my reach. And I remember one night my husband cried him on my arms. It was the worst night ever. And
Mm.
he cried him out of my arms, cried him out of the bed. He was about 3 months old, and it's like he's sleeping in his own room.
Mm.
And if anybody understands what that feels like, I literally, in the middle of the night after my husband went to sleep, I went to go sleep in his room.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize I was traumatized because he had left the room. It's so many moving parts to this emotional well being and health. And we could keep going. We could
Yeah.
keep talking about it. Keep on talking about it because I feel like it's so necessary right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd like you to give some advice to support couples navigating the uncertainties of infertility emotionally and mentally. Because I feel that's the part that we don't talk about as well. We may, say, okay, we're struggling, but emotionally navigating that, like advice to help them understand what they're going through and verbalizing.
Yeah. So every individual, every couple partnership is different. And you also have to take into consideration the cultural differences as well, because there's significant cultural differences, faith-based differences that people rely on to cope. Fundamentally, through it all, what research says is most helpful, and what I have seen it to be most helpful, is to talk about it, not to keep it to yourself. And the reason for that is when we keep it to ourselves, as we're going through this very difficult and challenging experience for many, many people, we are in our own heads, and we start to have a dialogue with ourselves about our self-worth, about what we should do. Lots of the shoulds come up. I should be better at this. I should be able to do this. This shouldn't be happening. Anytime we do shoulds, I like to connect shoulds with shame, because every time we say should, we're giving ourselves this expectation that usually has some connotation around a societal expectation or belief. But the fact of the matter is that truly the truth? Is that a fact?
Yeah.
So whenever we say should, to me, it's almost like a swear word. Whenever I hear that, I'm just kind of like, because it's so much pressure that we're putting on ourselves and on others. The fact of the matter is, more people than not have an experience or a bout with infertility. And you just don't know it because no one's talking about it. It's much easier for people to talk about something like right now, because people are experiencing COVID. People can have conversations about COVID, and it's not taboo to say, oh, my cousin had it, or I had it, I was tested, because people are talking about it, and you feel like you're in it together and it's normalized. But something around infertility that is so common globally, there's still a lot of shame and stigma around it, because there's this expectation that if you're not able to have a child, there's something wrong with you as a woman. And people are still doing this thing that blows my mind, of going up to women and saying, you haven't had a kid, you haven't had a child yet? Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. Like, y'all not having babies yet? When are y'all? All of those societal expectations brings on the should, so that when we're going through experiences of infertility, those messages come up. Aunt Matilda is playing in our mind about, y'all need to have some big old fat old babies. Grandma Nunu is playing in her mind about, I just want to have at least one grandbaby before I leave this blessed earth. Like, all of that is playing in our mind.
Oh.
Yes, it is playing. It is playing. And we need a safe place to go to be able to talk to people who get it, who understand it. So one of the healthiest and best things you can do for yourself is not to do this alone, not to do this in silence, but to talk to people. Reach out. There are groups online, especially during COVID. If you're going through this, you don't have to go it alone, and you don't have to be unsafe and go and meet up with people. You can literally go online. There are groups on Facebook. There are groups all over. You can even Google and just find groups that match, including your lifestyle, your faith system, your cultural background. There are groups because there are people who are going through similar experiences to you. So it's important to talk about it. The other thing that I will say is, if you're finding that it's causing conflict in your relationship, and you're having difficulty navigating the conversation, don't do what's easy, and that's to shut down. Shutting down is the easy way out. Stopping the communication is the easy way out. You are actually in the process of trying to have a child. You are actually starting the process of developing a foundation for another healthy human being to come into this world. And you want to already start to model what it's like to traverse difficult times, that we don't just give up, that we don't just shut down, but we grab hold of the pains of the people that are around us and the people that love us, and we fight through it with love, and we fight through it with commitment. And so fight against what's easy. Have the difficult conversations. Babe, I feel like I'm being used. I feel like this isn't what I wanted. This isn't what I thought it was going to be. Babe, I'm upset. I don't want to do this anymore. Have the difficult conversations, even if you feel like your partner is going to be completely upset with you. It's better to do that than to shut down or not communicate and build resentment and regret. So push through that. And if you need help doing that, get an objective party to help you, whether it is a spiritual counselor, whether it is a counselor in the psychological field. Get someone to help you navigate through that difficult conversation, but absolutely don't shut down. Use your voice and communicate.
I feel like I need I don't know, a round of applause, a rain team or something. It's just so much to unpack.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like everyone needs to personally sit down and unpack our feelings, because otherwise it's going to get to a pivotal place, and something, it could be as light as a feather or as heavy as a stone, it's going to make everything come falling down.
Yeah.
And I've experienced that in my own life. So talking about this subject area, not only because I work in psychiatry and I can see the effects of it, but just understanding emotional intelligence, and how to adapt. All of that is so important as we navigate through infertility. And infertility as a plus size woman.
Mm-hmm.
I like to touch on that before we go.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you go to the doctor's office, just lose a little bit of weight. You'll be all right. It'll all work out. I lost the weight and nothing worked out. I did the drugs and still. So like the impact of that negative, reinforcement that's happening all the time. Because although you lost the weight, what's negative about it? I still didn't get pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
So can you talk about that a little bit? Just being
absolutely pet peeve for me. Okay. So, and it also gets to the should, because oftentimes, and I say Zoftic, so because I think curvy, curvaceous, sexy, just it's out, just boom. So I just uphold. And what annoys me more than anything is when people go to the doctor, they're focused on having a child. And a part of this checklist conversation is the doctor will say something like, you need to think about losing weight, or you should, there's that word, lose some weight. The conversation or the directive immediately after that, so I want to empower all people listening to this, needs to be, what are my labs? What are they saying? Am I healthy? Is there anything going on hormonally? Is there anything going on with my thyroid? Is there, for my GYN exam, is there anything happening there? Give me the facts. Give me the facts that tell me that there's some correlation with my body weight and me not being able to have a child. But don't give me the facts based on what you think and what you've read in medical books that especially are based in a Eurocentric model. So don't give that, because that actually looks at things like BMI that we know that really doesn't say a lot about the variety of the body shapes, especially for women of color. So stay out of that and give me the facts. After you do all of my lab work, after we get the exam, tell me what that data says. And if that data says that there is something that I can do with my health, and maybe it might be losing a few pounds that may bring down, for instance, hypertension. Or if I'm looking pre-diabetic, and if I maybe lose a few pounds, then we know that that can kind of help minimize risk. And that way it'll minimize any risk of me miscarrying or having issues while I'm pregnant. Okay, that's a conversation we can have. But if you just feel like I need to think about losing a few pounds or should lose a few pounds, that is inappropriate and incorrect. So I always like to empower people to be ready to have that very clear conversation. And that's with anything, because oftentimes people automatically go through that and go to that as that is the issue when going to a doctor's office or seeing a physician. And it's like, based on what? Based on, do the work, do the labs, do the exams, give me all of the data, and then tell me how doing this can correlate to what my ultimate outcome needs to be. So I just want to empower people to be ready to have that conversation. But it always, including with medications that are going to be prescribed, that if you don't feel comfortable taking them or you don't know what they are, ask the questions. Ask the questions. It is your body. be empowered about what goes into your body and what you are comfortable with and what you are not comfortable with. And if you're working with a physician, a mental health provider, anyone, and they are not in alignment with what your needs are and supporting you, then find someone else. Talk to someone else, because it's not our job as professionals to push our agenda on you. It's our job to listen to you and meet you where you are and give you the facts and give you the information to help you make an informed decision.
I love it. And you use the line that I use all the time with my plus size curvy boutique is meeting women right where they are. And it's a whole thing. It's the presentation of the whole being, the mind, the choice, the body, and just meeting you can also meet yourself right where you are. So you have to accept yourself in order for somebody and understand yourself in order to actually tell somebody about yourself. So that way they can't just pour all of their thought processes on you. I am loving this conversation. I really, really wish that we could just keep talking, but I know we just can't, right? Ladies, y'all need to drop the comments. Tell me what you've learned tonight, what you're taking away. And like I said before, Dr. Harris Jackson's information, if you're seeking a therapist in the Central Florida area, especially if you're a couple also seeking sex therapy, I am encouraging you to please hit her up, get your appointment in there, talk to her. This is important. It is important because we need to be mentally healthy beyond the fertility process and even during. It's so important. I thank you so much for joining us today. I am so elated. I mean, honestly, everybody know I'm a geek in some ways, and so I love hearing, like, "Ooh, that was good. Ooh, I missed on that. I need to put that in my file folder to use in my practice." So I enjoyed this conversation so much. So thank you so much.
Oh, you are so welcome. Thank you. I enjoyed it too. Thank you.
Awesome. So I always close all of our episodes with a verse, and tonight there's no other verse that I feel like better fit what we talked about except for Isaiah 4:6. And we all know that it says, "My people perish due to lack of knowledge." And I feel like she poured knowledge, y'all. She poured knowledge. I want you to grab what you need, put it in your file folder, take it to your doctor's appointment, take it with you to your doctor's appointment, take it to your family members, share it with your friends, because sexual health, mental health is important during this journey. I can't wait to see you in the next episode. You guys have a wonderful evening, and thank you again for joining us. See you next time. Bye.